There's probably 5 or 6 main points of the bill. One, it would limit transfers by re-implementing the NCAA's one-time transfer exception, allowing athletes to move one time to a new school.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast, the global authority on coaching leadership, where coaching wisdom meets real talk. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and on today's special Find the Balance Friday edition, we have, in my opinion, the preeminent college sports reporter in the country, Ross Dellenger. Ross joined Yahoo Sports in July of 2023 and continues to lead honest, open coverage of all things in college and pro sports. We do appreciate your time, appreciate your support, Ross. How you doing? And thank you for joining us.
I'm good, Keith. Good to be on.
All right. So, fans, in segment one, we're going to talk about the Protect College Sports Act and the federal intervention. In segment two, we're going to talk about NIL and the transfer portal, as well as the college football playoff landscape. And in segment three, it's an academic blind spot, and I hope Ross can help us out with that. So, Ross, let's get started. Where does the bill currently stand, and does it realistically have the votes to clear the full Senate?
Yeah, I think right now they're on recess, right? They're on a break for about 3.5 more weeks or so. The Senate is. I think that it depends on who you talk to. If when they come back, it has the votes. There was an agreement struck about 2 weeks ago with lawmakers that that the bill will get a vote on the week they come back. It's sort of John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, made an agreement with the bill's co-authors to get their vote for other matters that he would agree to bring the bill to the floor when they come back. So it'll be the week of September 14th. But to get back to your question, the big question is, do they have the 60 votes in the Senate, to pass the legislation? And I think, again, depends on who you ask, but it seems like they do. There's been a high level of confidence that they will have the votes and have had the votes for a while. And so, it's just a long process to get a bill to the floor and then get an actual formal official vote. It just kind of takes a while for these things to happen. So there's another bill. It's a crypto bill that is also a part of the agenda when they return. So the bill could be delayed a bit by the crypto bill. I think it's possible, but certainly I think most people at least believe that at some point the week of September 14th there'll be a vote. Now there'll be like a preliminary vote, and then they'll have to wait a day, and then there'll be like another preliminary vote, and they'll have to wait another day, and then there'll be the formal vote. That's kind of like how it looks. So the end of that week or the beginning of the next week in the Senate is probably more likely to when you'll see the formal vote actually happen.
All right. So the bill aims to preempt state NIL laws with a single federal standard. In your opinion, who do you think benefits the most, and who's fighting hardest to stop?
Well, I think what's going on I guess I'll give the biggest concepts, right, of the bill, right, which is there's probably 5 or 6 main points of the bill. One, it would limit transfers by re-implementing the NCAA's one-time transfer exception, allowing athletes to move one time to a new school, and then have to sit out a year. It would standardize a 5-year eligibility for players. It would ban pro players from coming back into college. It would put more restraints and restrictions probably around the athlete revenue share cap. It would raise the cap, but it would put more restraints and restrictions around enforcement of the cap by granting antitrust powers to the College Sports Commission to enforce the cap more. Though it creates an agent registry and certification process as well. So those are kind of the main points of the bill. The bill, uh, just like the House settlement as well, is really a way to collectively bargain for college athletes. It's not a collectively bargain agreement, but it is sort of a way to do it without doing it. So the problem with that is right now athletes can freely move where they want to go, and they're basically paid whatever because there's not a lot of enforcement and there's not a antitrust protection around the enforcement entity. Um, so there's certainly a lot of supporters of the bill that will tell you that the bill is pro athlete. But there's a reason that many labor unions and athlete players association organizations are against the bill, and that's because it tries to collectively bargain for athletes, despite them not really being as much at the table under a traditional collective bargaining agreement. So there's a reason that virtually most of the conferences in the NCAA for sure has backed this bill with full support, and I think it's because it probably is better for the administration side when you look at the bill. But look, there are protections for athletes in there. Certainly athletes have said and come out publicly that some of them, they don't want to be employees. They don't want their colleagues to be moving around and their other teammates to be moving around and teams to be new every year, and the instability that causes. So there is something to be said for that. But in general, the bill is pro NCAA and college athletic administration.
I think that's a good place to pause. So, fans, when we get back in segment two, we're going to talk about NIL, the transfer portal, and the college football landscape. We'll be right back on the Yahoo Coaches Podcast.
Today's student athletes face pro-level challenges without pro-level support. The CKA SAVE project is here to change that. For 16 plus years, Dr. Keith Adams and his team have provided comprehensive academic and athletic support from middle school through post-graduation transitions. NIL guidance, transfer portal navigation, academic coaching, career planning, they've got it covered. The CKA SAVE project. When your future is on the line, experience matters. Learn more at www.ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast, special Find the Balance Friday edition with Ross Dellenger. In segment two, let's talk the NIL, transfer portal, and college football landscape. Ross, we're 2 years into revenue sharing and the House settlement. Is NIL functioning as intended in your opinion, or has it just shifted where the chaos lives?
Yeah, I think that the intention of originally of NIL, 5 years ago, was to allow athletes to do commercial and endorsement deals. All right, all that with companies like pro athletes get the chance to, and obviously that became a lot of school donors sort of disguising salaries and payments to athletes as NIL. I think what the rev share era and the House settlement was supposed to do was shift the money disguised as NIL, was shift it from boosters to schools and have the schools directly pay the athletes. But as part of the House agreement, athletes still needed the option to earn endorsement and commercial opportunities. And so what's happened is you have the revenue that's coming from the schools, directly from the schools to the athletes, and really those are just salaries from the schools to athletes. But you also have this other lane that schools have sort of exploited a loophole where just like boosters did with the NIL loophole before the House settlement, schools are now exploiting the loophole to partner with corporate sponsors and their big brands that they're contractually obligated with, to funnel, sort of redirect money that would normally go to the athletic department to the rosters in the form of NIL. So it's just another way of disguising NIL as payment to athletes, which is a reason, many in and around the industry would say that, again, to get back to our conversation earlier about collective bargaining, many would say they just need that, there just needs to be some kind of collective bargaining agreement in some way to close all these sort of loopholes. So that's kind of the way things are going right now. And, as we discussed, the bill would sort of put more probably restraints and restrictions around the policing of outside and NIL to athletes. We'll see if that really works. But get back to your question. I don't. NIL hasn't necessarily materialized like everybody thought, and it's probably because it's a competitive environment, and schools want an advantage, and that advantage is recruiting, and it's trying to find a way to pay players more.
Yeah, and with that, as a follow-up, you talk to a lot of folks in the industry. What's the honest coach-to-coach conversation on tampering right now? Is deterrence working at all, or is it just as crazy as we think it is?
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy, and it's been that way for years. I think that the press conference that happened in the spring with Dabo Swinney when he went after Ole Miss and their coach for tampering has sort of kind of quieted maybe some of the tampering, or certainly put it in a way where coaches aren't doing it so obviously. And the NCAA has been working on sort of some tampering legislation in a new policy for tampering and a new penalty structure. I think it was supposed to probably be out in July, and we're sort of still waiting for that to happen, because I think a lot of the schools have not agreed, and the conferences have not agreed on some of the things the NCAA has come up with. The bill also has a provision in about tampering and would prohibit tampering. So there's an awful lot of tampering going on. There's no doubt about it, and that's led to a lot of some lawsuits too. There's ongoing lawsuits on tampering as well. One school to another. Miami, Wisconsin is a big one that happened a couple of years ago, where Miami took a player from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is sort of in a lawsuit against Miami. So we've had some instances where schools kind of suing schools for over tampering.
Yeah. Before I ask you about the playoff, one more question on my mind. If the federal government comes in and passes this bill, if you tamper, are you breaking federal law, and do the feds get in because they have a high winning percentage in court? How would that work? There's no idea with that.
We don't really know. Yeah. I mean, some of the schools have obviously signed, a lot of them have signed players to these rev share contracts, and in there, there's not supposed to be tampering. So I think the best way to handle tampering probably for schools is to file some kind of suit or grievance over these contracts and broken clauses in the contracts.
Yeah. Last question for this segment. We've got the college football playoff. This year it's going to be 12, but there's a push for 24. What are your thoughts on college football playoff expansion?
Yeah, it continues to be an evolving discussion. It's down to 12 or 24. Either stay at 12 or you go to 24. The Big Ten has been very clear that it wants to have 24, and most of the other leagues have come around to it, including Notre Dame, which has a spot along with other conferences on the CFP governing board. But the way the bylaws are written in the CFP is that the SEC and the Big Ten must agree on something together for it to move forward and advance. And the SEC and Big Ten right now don't agree. The SEC hasn't swung its support behind 24. They would like to have 16, but the Big Ten has been very clear that they do not, that they want 24. And so I think these conversations will go into the fall. Obviously, we're going to have 12 this year, and we'll have 12 next year unless they can agree on something by December 1. And again, the options are almost certainly to be 12, or somehow they come up and convince the SEC to agree on a 2014 playoff.
Sounds like education and kicking the can down the road. So, fans, when we get back in segment 3, you know Dr. Adams is going to ask about the academic piece in that. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. Hi, everyone. Dr. Keith Adams here. And for over 30 years, I've dedicated my life to helping student athletes succeed, not just on the fields and the courts, but in the classroom and beyond. And that's why I founded the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project understands that finding the balance between academics and athletics is crucial for long-term success. That's why the CKA Save Project offers a range of programs, including personalized consulting, mentorship, and coming in 2027, our innovative Gap Year Basketball Academy designed to assist both young men and women reach their full potential both on and off the court. I'm incredibly excited to announce that the CK Save Project is now partnering with the Cascade Sports Network. This partnership will allow us the opportunity to amplify our message and reach even more student athletes through the Odd Coaches Podcast and other exciting initiatives. Join the CKA Save Project and the Cascade Sports Network as we empower the next generation of student athletes. Visit CKA on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org to learn more. Let's work together to find the balance and help unlock your potential. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 3. Is there an academic blind spot? Ross, you've covered the on-field impact of NIL and the portal extensively, but how big is the blind spot on academic and professional readiness from what you've seen?
Yeah, it used to be that GPA and APR, those academic progress rate and the graduation rate were such big talking points with coaches and administrators. You heard it in press conferences often, and you don't hear it anymore. It rarely ever gets brought up. And there are certainly many players that don't go to in-person classes anymore, especially if they're older players. They're only taking an internship or online classes, and it's happening more and more. And as players and the salaries that players earn continue to increase, and it becomes more about money and contracts, compensation, I think you're going to continuously see that. Last year, Kyle Whittingham, when he was at Utah, I remember him telling me at Big 12 Media Day that he expected at some point the higher education in major college sports that are for now tethered together to be untethered, in that you won't have to go to school at all, and the academics won't be tied to the sport at all, because it's become such more of a professional entity. And I don't know if he's right, but you can kind of see it happening. There are signs that the academic portion is being lost.
Yeah. So next question is, where do independent education-focused organizations like the CK Save Project fit into this landscape to protect student athletes holistically? Because what we're seeing on our end is student athletes exhausting eligibility without getting the degree on the back end. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think that's probably a product of the movement we've seen in the transfer portal, where players are moving so much to different schools, and credits aren't necessarily, carrying over. And again, I go back to the money because I think it is really important to this conversation. I think if you're a 19, 20, 21-year-old and you're being paid, $300,000, $500,000 to play college football, um, why are you studying, right? It's hard, I think, at that age to think, hey, I need to study so I can make money in the future. But I'm already making a lot of this money now, so why do I even need this degree? And I think that's sort of happened. I think that's happening. And I just think the movement and the rapid movement of players at so many schools has an impact on all that as well.
Yeah. As we close, you were very gracious with your time at the Final Four, and we had a chance to interact. And you know of the research CKSA project is doing on student athlete motivation, collective bargaining, and coaching in today's climate. Um, any final thoughts for our audience as we wrap this up in terms of the work we're doing, not only with student athlete motivation, student athlete support, but also with the Odd Coaches podcast and our digital media network? And again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, it's certainly great to be on. It's a really uncertain, sort of murky time right now. I every now and then I check my direct messages on social media, and there are often athletes reaching out to me about house case stuff and back damage stuff and all this stuff that they should be getting help from their school or from the NCAA. So it's just a really murky and uncertain time. So any way I can provide help and insight, to players and athletes, I'm certainly open to doing that. And I know what you guys do is important for that as well, educating and providing athletes with the insight and understanding and educators of what's going on sort of on the landscape, because it is a kind of crazy, uncertain time that probably isn't going to be slowing down anytime soon.
All right. So where can our fans find you? Our super producer, Kelly, will put your information on the screen. Where can they follow Ross Dellenger?
Yeah, you can follow me at Ross Dellenger, is just my name, RossDellenger, on Twitter or an X. That's kind of the big platform where you can find all my stuff. Yahoo Sports, college football page. You can find my work there. And my email is just my last name, Dellinger@gmail.com. And I'm certainly open to any emails if there's any questions.
All right, Ross. On a personal note, I do appreciate the time and the consideration you have given me personally, as well as the CKA Safe Project. So on behalf of our special guest, Ross Dellenger, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and/or watching the Odd Coaches podcast, the global authority on coaching leadership, where coaching wisdom meets real talk, also seen on the Cascade Sports Network. And we'll see you on the sidelines. Until next time, take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on the X platform at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Keith Adams and the CKA Save Project on social media at CKA Save Project. For more information about the CKA Save Project, visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches podcast.